Yo, 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 shalom, shalom, family, man. Welcome back to another episode of Nus Babal. And it's your brother, Yahuah here, Yahuah Yasharal, man. And again, we here to talk about what is expatriation, what is an expat. Obviously, we're talking about this from a scriptural perspective, being and understanding that that's the foundation of our ministry and what we're doing. Everything we're looking at from a historical, cultural, scriptural perspective, right? So we're looking forward to bringing you guys that today. So I don't want to waste too much time. I want to get right into the lesson. I want to talk about this today. So very interesting. Again, let's not prepare something that I was made aware of a while ago when I first started studying scripture and just really looking at how much it spoke about traveling, right? So the scriptures is totally based around travel, right? So that's what we're gonna get into today because we modern. We're in a modern generation, but everything is still the same. So it's good to connect the dots, right? So let's talk about it. So we're gonna be talking about what's the expat, right? And that's basically gonna be a foundational study according to scripture. That's also gonna cover some words like nomad. What's a nomad? What's a traveler? What's a stranger? All these different things, right? And it's basically gonna be looked at through the scope of history, right? History of travel in scripture, right? From the first to the last. So we see again, this is a huge theme. This go under our Nus Babal theme because we see that from the beginning of scripture to the end, the Most High been giving us a consistent message to move, to travel. Okay, so first thing first, right? We want to understand like what is an expat according to the English language. So expat is also short for expatriate, right? What's an expatriate? An expatriate is a person who lives outside of their native country. So that's important to understand. It's important to just highlight. I want to just talk about that for example, for instance, for reference. You know, again, it's important to understand all of us as African Americans, quote unquote. We know we Hebrew people, but basically we born in America. If I'm born in America and I'm living in Africa right now, I'm an expatriate, right? So that's a modern term we give to a modern name we give to the term, but we see this term throughout scripture all the time. But modern term, we're gonna connect the old biblical words with the modern words. So modern term, that's an expat, expatriate, person living outside of their native country. But it's called a lot of things, right? And again, we see this in the scripture going back to the beginning. So let's open up with our first scripture, Genesis chapter 4, verse 12, right? And it reads, when you work the ground, it will no longer yield to you its strength. You will be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. And obviously, this is Yahuah speaking to Cain, right? Cain, remember, he killed his brother, Cain killed Abel. And his punishment was to be a wanderer and a fugitive on the earth. So this was like the first instance of a person from the first family in the whole world being sent off, like being that black sheep, right? Being a wanderer in the fugitive. And it's just important, just want to highlight some of these words because, again, Cain was the first man to be displaced on the earth and made to be a wanderer. So this word wanderer that you see highlighted in red is the word nude, right? Kind of like the root word nous, N-U-S, Nus Babal, to flee. But N-U-D is to be a wanderer, right? To be naked, just be having to move, right? Fugitive, another word that's Hebrew root word right there too, like on the N-U-A, Nua, right? It's a root word to begin to be somebody have to continually move, like somebody that's shaking or a feather that's being blown, whatever. It's like continuously moving. So just highlighting that this has been happening from the beginning. Cain was the first person to be made a wanderer, right? Fugitive, right? All these words we're gonna see, vagabond, all relate to the same concept. Then we can't forget about the great dispersion, right? Because we remember, again, in the beginning, by the sheet, Genesis, Yahuah confounded the languages, what he did at Babal. Nus Babal is talk about that. We founded on that principle, talking about what Yahuah did at Babylon, right? And we talked more about that in the first episode about on the foundational series, what is Babylon? But we just gonna highlight it again by how Yahuwah dispersed the nations, right? Genesis chapter 11, verse 8 and 9. So Yahuwah dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building a city. Therefore, his name was called Babal, because there Yahuwah not only confused the languages of all the earth, but from there Yahuwah dispersed them over the face of the earth, over the face of all the earth. So from that place, what happened in Babylon, not only did he just knock down the tower and mix up the languages, but from there, everybody started traveling. From there, that was like the first, you know what I'm saying, New York City, that was the big city, and everybody got dispersed from there. So that's pretty much, again, the origins of travel, because from that point, everybody was made to be a wanderer, a fugitive, vagabond, expat. You see, you know what I'm saying? So we see the history of all these things from Scripture. That's really what I want to highlight and show, right? And that brings us to the most infamous, right, traveler that we have. We got Abraham. What I do? 1 second. Pause that. So we highlight in Genesis chapter 12, verse 14. So I gotta go to that scripture and read that and highlight that. So let me see. Got the issue of the playback. So Genesis chapter 12, verse 1 through 4, right? Let me read that. Make sure we're looking at the same thing. Cool. So look, verse 1, it say, now Yahuwah said to Abram, go from your country. So that's gonna make him an expat already. So it's important to know, like, that ain't the fugitive thing. It just happened to Cain or like the wicked people, like people that happened at Babylon, at Babal. These people got confounded. Travel is a universal concept, and we see not only Abraham or Abram, right, at that point, he being called to travel, but Yahuwah putting a blessing in traveling for him. Like, him traveling is going to be a blessing. It's a divine call. This is the first time Yahuwah reaching out to him. He calling him, and in this call is a blessing, but he going to have to expatriate to get the blessing, right? So, listen, verse 1, Yahuwah said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. You know, sometimes when we leave, when we travel, when we're making these moves, these leaps of faith, we don't always know where we're going, but we're going to the place Yahuwah going to show us, right? And that was a blessing in it for Abraham. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will barak you, and I will make your name great, so that you will be a barakah, right? And I will barak those that barak you, and him who dishonors you, I will curse, right? That's important. And in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed, or Baruch. So Abram went as Yahuwah had told him, and Lot, or Luke, went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And that's interesting, right? And that also goes to show what? Okay, yeah, Abram is the first expat in the world. It was a blessing. This is the foundation of the covenant. This is the whole point of the blessing. Getting him trusting in Yahuwah. But it also proved that there's no such thing as being too old to travel. Because Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. He went to make this trip. You see what I'm saying? So that's very interesting as far as how Yahuwah called him and how it played out. This man was 75 years old. So what excuse do anybody else have not to travel? And then we continue on in that story with Abraham, because the story of Abraham is the story of Yasharal as a nation, right? But we see how he presented himself, what Abraham said when he's traveling. Now Yahuwah called him out of his place. So now that humbled him, you see? So travel is a big part of Hebrew culture. And we starting to see this because these scriptures painting the picture. It is not my perspective or anybody's perspective, but what the scripture is showing us, again, along with a little bit of word studies. That's why we put the Hebrew Strong's numbers here, which serve as the beginning or the starting point for our deeper research, you see. So Genesis chapter 23, verse 4, we see is Abraham speaking. He said, I'm a sojourner and a foreigner among you. Give me property among you for a burying place, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. Obviously, this when his wife passed, and he was buying land from Hittites. But the key point is we see this word sojourner. That's the Hebrew word gar, which is Strong's number H1616, and it means to be a guest, a sojourner, or a traveler. Basically, a traveler. You traveling if you in all these situations, right? And also, it's synonymous with the Hebrew word tashab, which is the H8453, right? Which is used to mean immigrant, foreigner, stranger, right? Sojourner in a strange land, not your own. Basically, expat, expatriate, right? So we see how all these words, there's so many synonyms. There's so many synonyms for like one Hebrew word or one or two Hebrew words, or basically one concept. These all travel related concepts, right? And so that's important to understand, right? And Abraham was the first person to go through that. That's why he's the father of the faith. You know, from leaving, being called out from the covenant, to leave his place, to be an expatriate, to all the experiences he had in expatriation, right? Big deal. All this is staples of the covenant. And that's really what I want to highlight, like something that it's a vein of scripture that I saw that it's a category in itself, and just understanding these things, how they reflect the covenant, right? And we see, look, continuing on, this Moses here now, Musha, right? And it's Exodus chapter 2, verse 22. And it say, she bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom or Garsham, right? In Abdi. For he said, I have been a stranger, Hebrew strong number 81616, in the strange land. So this Moses' very words, and this is very expressive. Same as his forefather Abraham, right? So that's more than two witnesses right there, kind of already proving the point I'm saying about expatriation being a staple of the covenant, right? Again, it's defining our faith in Yahuah and Elohim, him drawing us out to highlight our purpose, right? So it's a lot that happened as far as our walk and our journey with Yahuah when we travel and when we expatriate, which is why we call to go to Jerusalem, right? 3 times a year. And another scripture that come to mind, Mashiach, he said, again, told his disciples to leave their families and their loved ones and to let the dead bury the dead. And he said it's not one that's going to leave home, a house, a family that's not going to be receive a reward tenfold. All right. So we could get that scripture later, because we're going to get to the New Testament scriptures, but continuing to highlight the foundation, right, of this travel, we see that Genesis, or by the sheep, chapter 21, verse 34, Abraham is quoted. He said, and Abraham sojourned many days in the land of the Philistines, right? And I want to point this out because we're seeing this talk of travel, and we see Abraham travel. He sojourned, a sojourner in these days. But he, ironically, in the land of the Philistines, if you look at that word in the Hebrew, the Philistines is immigrants. The land of the Philistines was the immigrant land. This land on the coast of the Mediterranean, right? In the land that will become allocated to Hebrews, that's historically known as the land of the Philistines, but the Philistines are immigrants as well. So just highlighting how travel is really ingrained in the covenant and in travel and scriptures and Hebraic thought and concept and in word and in deed, right? So just want to highlight that. So this one is about, again, one law for all, and showing how the foreigner, the sojourner, the traveler, the expatriate has always been accepted and ingrained in the culture of Yasharal. So we're going to let the scriptures talk for themselves, but this is a very important scriptural concept to understand. All right. Exodus chapter 12, verse 49. We read. It says, there will be one law or one Torah, right, for the native and for the stranger who sojourns among you. So Yahuwah always wanted us to, in our culture, show favor on those who traveling, those expatriates, right? So that's a big part of what Nus Babal is about, because this is a part of Hebrew culture, right? whether people want to acknowledge it or not. We got all these laws are relevant, and they're supposed to be a fact, they're pillars of our lifestyle, right? It's important to understand Hebrew culture, right? We see this continuing on. Exodus chapter 23, verse 9. It says, you will not oppress a traveler, a sojourner, an expatriate, etc., 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 right? Why? Because you know the heart of a traveler or a sojourner. For you were expatriates, right? You were travelers in the land of Masarim. And this is important. Again, we should see these things reflected in our lifestyle. They are pillars of the Hebrew faith and the Hebrew culture. Travel. Don't oppress the traveler. Don't oppress the sojourner, the expatriate, right? Etc., etc. Verse 12. Staying in chapter 23. 6 days you will do your work. But on the 7th day you will rest, that your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your servant woman, and the alien, another word for traveler, right? Expatriate, wanderer, right? Sojourner, all these different synonyms for the same concept, so that the alien, the stranger, may be refreshed. So it's important to understand all these concepts, right? Deuteronomy, and this is a part of the covenant as well. This is a staple of the covenant, another staple of the covenant. This is one of the curses that he had the nation to repeat. Children of Yasharal to repeat. The blessings and the curses of the Torah, right? Deuteronomy chapter 27, verse 19. Cursed be anyone who perverts the justice. Cursed be anyone who perverts justice due to the traveler, to the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. And all the people will say, Amen, let it be, so be it. It is, right? So, again, that's one of the staples of the covenant. Don't oppress these people who travel, and the fatherless, the widow. Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 12. Assemble the people, men, women, and the little one, and the sojourner within your town, even the person that's traveling in your town, whoever it may be. It may be family within the body of Yasharal traveling to another town. It may be total strangers, right? Everybody need to come and hear and learn to fear, right? Assemble the people, men, women, little ones, and the sojourner within your town, that they may hear and learn to fear Yahuah Elohim and be careful to do all the words of this Torah, right? So it's one law for all, and that's important to understand, even the traveler. So all that was just to show and to highlight and make sure we have it understood that mankind has continued to move about and around the earth since the beginning, right? Travel always been a part of what's happening on the world, on the earth, right? And it's going to continue. And that's what at this stage, we transition as Hebrews and Bible believers and whole, people that's doing the covenant. What does that look like today? That's the question, right? So our eternal position as travelers on earth is well defined in Scripture, right? We see that in and out of Scripture. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 23. The land will not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine, says Yahuah. For you are strangers and sojourners with me. Again, that's the two words being synonymously used. Strangers, sojourners, we travelers, right? No matter, a lot of times we don't feel like that when we're in our place of birth, but that's what traveling abroad give you, that understanding, that scriptural understanding, how small we are in our own sight. Like, we just travelers on this earth, but everything belongs to Yahuah, and it puts it in perspective properly, right? And that's what our forefathers understood. They understood these things. If we read First Chronicles, right, chapter 29, verse 15, it say, for we are strangers before you and sojourners, as all our fathers were. Our days on the earth are like a shadow, and there is no abiding. And that's David saying that, I believe, just talking, and we read that in context, speaking to people, just to Yahuah, I think. But our forefathers understood this about the concept of being strangers, travelers, sojourners, right? Right. Continuing on, Psalms chapter 39, verse 12, it says, hear my prayer, O Yahuah, and give ear to my cry. Hold not your peace at my tears, for I am a traveler with you, right? A sojourner, a guest, like all my fathers. And it is certainly was due right here with David, right? And but it's just to show that this was highlighting again this word sojourner or stranger, sojourner, how it's used again in different writings in different places, but how our people understood that we got to keep it in perspective, and it just help you be nicer to other people, especially when you travel. When you know people away from their home base or their home situation, they need stuff like that. Hospitality is a big pillar of the Hebrew culture, right? So, with that said, we can see the scriptures. With the scriptures giving us so much evidence, we can only expect this trend of travel and expatriation to continue, right? So all that was past and a previous understanding, but we know that we got more activity to look forward to. And again, what does this stuff look like in today's time, right? It's a lot of people displaced, right? So we got to talk about this. So woe to Babylon, because every man will return to his own place. And that's what scripture telling us. If we look at Isaiah chapter 13, verse 14, it talk about that. It say, like a hunted gazelle or like sheep with none to gather them, each will return to his own people and each will flee to his own land. And we talked about that, flee Babylon. What does it mean to flee? All that. We're going to continue to put these foundational lessons together because the scriptures paint the picture, and it's a lot of scriptures. That's why I'm kind of breaking it down, different topics about travel, but it's a lot of stuff, but it's all about this judgment coming with Babylon, this fleeing, impending judgment, where everybody is telling us time after time, travel going to only continue. People going to have to flee to their own land. So we waiting for it. If we continue reading Isaiah chapter 47, verse 15, it says, such to you are those with whom you have labored, who have done business with you from your youth. They wander about, again, they wandering, each in his own direction. There is none to save you. And again, for more context, read this chapter. This is just the beginning of y'all study. Read chapter 47, Isaiah. Is all about Babylon and the same things Isaiah 13 saying, same things Revelation saying. It's going to be a movement of the people because we got to, the other prophet got it right here, Jeremiah or Yahuah, right? Chapter 50, verse 16, right? Listen to what he's saying. Cut off from Babal the sower and the one who handles the sickle in the time of harvest because of the sword of the oppressor. Everyone will turn to his own people and everyone will flee to his own land. So again, more telling information that this travel and expatriation and repatriation and wandering and fugitive and vagabonds and sojourners and the aliens and the resident foreigners, all this talk gonna continue because I'm in a place right now that I wasn't born, but I'm adapting to another place. Our ancestors was in the place that they wasn't born, but they adapted to another place, and it's a cycle. It's a virtuous cycle of traveling, of being expatriation and repatriation and coming and going. So it's definitely a pattern that we have to pay attention to, right? Continuing on, Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 9. The indictments against Babylon continue. We will have healed Babylon or Babal, but she was not healed. It says, forsake her, forget about that place. So we're going to just continue to give y'all the evidence, to pile on what's going on, keep giving y'all the news, and just try to present alternatives. But the scripture's telling us to forsake her and let us go each to his own country, for her judgment has reached up to heaven and has been lifted up even to the skies. So take that for what it's worth, right? We see the vision, right? Kazum, Revelation chapter 18, verse 4. It says, then I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her. So that's a movement of people right there. That's an expatriation right there. A huge one that's yet to happen. And that's what we setting the stage for with this conversation about expatriation. Because we haven't seen it yet. Some people I know may have gotten out, left, or whatever, but that's like the leakings of it. But it's like a wave of expatriation set to happen. And the scripture's telling us, it's forewarning us about it. So we got to like pay attention. Say, come out of her, my people. So it's a call, direct call to a particular people. It says, lest you take part in her sins, unless you share in her plagues. So all these things is very important. But one thing is for sure, right? One thing for certain. If Yahuwah has scattered us, then he will gather us. Or he can gather us. We know he will gather us. And the scriptures talk about that, right, as well. Continuing on, reading Isaiah chapter 56, verse 1 through 8. There is hope at the end of the tunnel. You see what I'm saying? It's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's hope at the end of the day. Yahuwah got a plan for all this creation. So let me read it. Verse 1. It says, thus says Yahuwah, keep justice and do righteousness, for soon my salvation will come and my righteousness be revealed. And that's the blessing. We all looking for that. We're looking forward to that. We're waiting on that. Baruch is the man who does this, and the son of man who holds it fast, who guards the Shabbat, not profaning it, and keeps his hand from doing any evil. Listen, that is what we have to do with the travelers. Let not the foreigner who has joined himself to Yahuwah say, Yahuwah will surely separate me from his people. And let not the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. And again, eunuch is somebody that's like, some instances they was castrated, but somebody that is like a eunuch, is like a monk or a priest, a nun person dedicated wholly to Yahuwah. And they, a lot of times we're foreigners, right? But sometimes foreigners dedicate themselves more to Yahuwah than his people. So he's saying, let not that person say, I'm cut off, right? Continuing on. For thus says Yahuwah, to the eunuchs who guard my Shabbats, who choose the things that please me and hold fast to my covenant. I will give in my house within my walls a monument and a name better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that will not be cut off. And the foreigners, right, the travelers, the sojourners, the aliens, the people who he sent is one Torah for the foreigners and the natives. And the foreigners who join themselves to Yahuwah. To join yourself to Yahuwah, you got to join yourself to his people. That is Yahuwah. Right, to minister to him, to love the name of Yahuwah, and to be his servants. Everyone who keeps or guards the Shabbats and does not profane it and holds fast to his covenant, right, and the people who he made the covenant with, these I will bring to my set apart mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer, right? Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar. For my house will be called a house of prayer for all people. And this is very important to understand. Yahuwah Elohim, who gathers the outcasts of Yasharah. He gathers the outcasts of Yasharah. I will gather yet others to him besides those already gathered. And that's the point, that's to bring it all home and just show and understand, like, this repatriation journey, this travel journey, this flee Babylon, Nus Babal journey. I've been on it, I've been through it, and we know it's all for Yahuwah will, it's for his esteem, it's his plan being worked out. He will gather his people, right? He said he gonna have his house of prayer. His house gonna be a house of prayer for all people. So that's the truth. All we could do is look to it, be servants, right? Establish it, look to do the service, to work in it, and wait for it and watch for it to come. Simple as that, right? And yeah, man, this is for Yasharal. Just keep you guys encouraged. So everybody again understand this traveling journey. It's a part of scripture. It's a part of our calling. And I referenced scripture earlier, like ones in the New Testament that Mashiach told his taught ones that nobody who leave or forsake their homeland or family, you're going to have a reward that's great for that. So point is, traveling is a part of our culture, whether it's going back to Jerusalem or getting out of Babylon, fleeing confusion, wherever that may be for you. Continue to look to Yahuwah for, resolve, for strength, for encouragement. And so we're going to stay here together, stay prayed up, follow the ministry. Again, that's what Living for Yahuwah is about. The podcast, Daily Bread, continue, stay encouraged in the word. Nus Babal is here as far as repatriation services, helping you guys get acclimated on the continent. Here in East Africa, we're trying to serve the diaspora. So Until the next time, be blessed, family. We'll see you guys in the next video. Shalom, shalom.